So I want to throw this out there. So a big talking point was again, I talked about this before vacation, then it happened during vacation, and I was told by a source I really trust that Matt Stafford's agent and the Rams are going to meet at the combine this week and try to bang something out. The Rams like him, Matt likes him. They want to stay together. He understands the importance of McVay and Puka Nacua and the organization, and the Rams like him. And it's a bad quarterback class, and Aaron Rodgers is an option, but not a preferred option. Stafford's better now. So, but here's an interesting thing. A lot of Giants have pushed back on this. We're not giving up the number 3 pick. So my take is, would you flip picks with the Rams? Because it's different. If this was a great quarterback draft class, I'd be very reluctant to give up the number 3 pick because I could trade down, right? Which the Rams would do if they got the number 3 pick. They would trade down and get more picks. The Giants, they're not necessarily going to trade down. They're just going to draft a quarterback, or they would get Stafford so they wouldn't have to. But would you as a GM, I would have no problem getting Matt Stafford, giving him a 3-year deal, maybe 4. I would draft a quarterback second year into it and just say, okay, I'll take the Rams pick late first. You get my draft top of the first. I would have no problem doing that because they've been unwatchable for a decade. The coach and the GM are on the hot seat in New York. Between Jaden Daniels and the Eagles roster, you're non-competitive. You're not a competitive team going forward. But when I say that, Giant fans you cannot trade the number 3 pick. There are drafts. I agree with that. You're not getting Cam Ward. This is not one of those drafts to me.
If I was a GM, I couldn't trade that valuable of a pick and pay a 37-year-old guy who does have some injury concerns at this point in time. But those guys are fighting for their jobs. So I think if you sat in Brian Daboll's shoes, he wouldn't hesitate to do that. I think he would just give the number 3 pick for Matt Stafford. Why would he not? He's going to get fired. And fair or not, like he would not get a job immediately after. And the general manager, let's also just speak in realities, would never get another job. So to me, now, if I was the owner, we would not be doing that. I think it's risky business. I would also not be in business. Look at the last 2 quarterbacks that were older, that got a lot of money, that the Packers, who are one of the best drafting teams of like all time, were like, yeah, we're done with Aaron Rodgers. And then Kevin O'Connell was like, yeah, I'm done with Kirk Cousins. And both those teams regretted those moves immediately. I mean, the Aaron Rodgers thing, well, they had to make that move. Like, I don't blame them for making that trade, the Jets, but that was a disaster. The Cousins thing was even worse because at least Rodgers at one point in time was one of the greatest players ever. Cousins always had some limitations coming off the Achilles. And let's face it, Colin, they're probably going to cut him in the next 7-10 days. He's going to get cut.
Yeah.
So now Stafford at this point in time is better than that version of Rodgers and definitely Cousins. But you know where I come with Stafford? He is going to accumulate. I looked, he made over $220 million in Detroit. His career earnings right now are about $360 million. So when his career is over, he will be over $400 million. So even after taxes and after paying agents, he will have accumulated before he's 40 years old over $200 million in net income. I'm not even talking about what he's made off the field in LA. I know I see him on Sleep Number commercials. He is really, really rich, right? At this point in time, when you spent a decade and a half almost in an irrelevant franchise and losing constantly in the peak of your powers, wouldn't you go, like, look at what Tom did? Like, wouldn't it make sense to be, hey, Sean, it doesn't get any better in the Rams. I know we're well run. I know I have an elite coach. I'm in a huge market. I have made Peyton Manning level money, and I have got my ass kicked, and we drafted in the top 10. Now I'm with a franchise who I don't even know these guys they're bringing in. All of a sudden, by midseason, they're ass kickers. Like, why would I want what I would come out? I would have stopped this conversation. I will do whatever it takes. I'm not going to make $5 million, but why wouldn't he be like, I'm making 27 this year. Let's do a 2-year deal for like 40 million, guarantee every penny. You go out and buy players. Yes. I want to be here. I'm going to go Brady. And people are like, don't count other people's money. This guy has made so much money and he played in such a bad franchise. Yeah. Shouldn't he? Like, I wouldn't want any part of the Giants if you're Matt Stafford. What are we talking about?
No,
but he likes his money. There's no doubt. Like him and Jimmy Sexton, they have been Peyton Manning, like every penny, every penny, every penny. And I don't blame the Rams. Like, no more every penny, buddy.
Yeah, I think Stafford wants to stay with the Rams, and to your point, I would want to stay with the Rams. The value of Sean McVay
And just the franchise
for
and
a
how well run
quarterback.
they are now. He saw the Lions
Yeah.
for 15 years.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of this, I think when things go public and, like Stephen A's contract went public, I always think when I see that the person actually wants to sign with the company. It goes public. I mean, and this is not a shot at Stephen A, but I always think that whenever a person, because I could make my stuff go public on my contract, and I don't. I'm not comfortable with it. But a lot of people are, and I'm not begrudging them. But Stafford and these people that it gets out either through their agent or sources, stuff gets out when people want it out, right? Like in my entire life, stories get out when people want it out. That's the reason stuff gets out. I've got secrets in my career in negotiations never gotten out because the company doesn't want them out and I don't want them out. This time in my negotiations, nothing gets out. I don't want it out. They don't want it out. I always tell my bosses, keep it out of the press. I don't want anything in the press. But when people do, it does get out there, it's generally because the sides want a deal. They want to remain. So when I see the Matt Stafford stuff, my take is Matt wants to stay in Los Angeles. He's got a gorgeous place near the beach in, I think, Hermosa or Manhattan Beach. It's great weather. He was in the Midwest for years. He's a Texas, Georgia kid. He probably likes warm weather. Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. So and this is not an indictment on anybody that goes public, but this counts in politics. If you're trying to get legislation passed, it counts in contracts. It counts I mean, stuff is out when somebody is trying to create leverage, but they want to stay where they're at. So I think
I think this one's pretty clear because this kind of happened last year. It feels a little more out this year. Is that the Rams are tough to negotiate with. Early on in their tenure with Les and Sean, they signed a deal that they clearly regretted in Todd Gurley. And ever since, they've been pretty good, right? And they haven't got in these positions where, the Niners have kind of found themselves the last couple of years like, we regret that Debo deal. We regret that Ayuk deal. And now they're kind of burned, and now they're pivoting like, we got to be careful with doing that stuff. The Rams learned early on because Todd Gurley's knee just went. And this Stafford thing, right. I think they've been tough with him. He's been, with Detroit, they always bent right over and gave him, and he was always the highest paid guy. The last couple of years, it's been hard. He's like, I'm only making 27. They're like, well, we'll give you a couple $1 million more, but we're not giving you 2 years, $100 million, Matt. That's just not happening. And we want you. That's you want us. We're winning. Listen, and I know you only have a chance. Like once he leaves, he's probably not going to make, when he's 42 years old, retired, $30 million, his first job, whatever he does.
Right.
So I understand you have the opportunity to make a lot of, but he's made so much and winning. Like he could go down as a legendary player that I would be very careful about driving this hard in negotiation. Now, I think he also knows like what would the Rams do? Sean McVay, they're not really in the business of just like, we'll figure it out on the fly. Like they understand what they have, but I think they have some negotiating power because, like you said, he doesn't want to leave. Look at his options. Like the Giants or the Titans are going to trade for you. What are we talking about?
Ugh, gross. And I do think I think the Aaron Rodgers thing has some legs. And I'll say this: we know that coaching matters with quarterbacks. Last 10 games last year, when Saleh was gone, the Jets were one of the poorest coach teams in the league. They're up and down, both sides of the ball. And Aaron put up good numbers. Aaron with McVay would put up good numbers. B-plus numbers, maybe not A numbers. So I think that's something they've thought about. Aaron's got a place in Malibu, and it's like, hey, if we get trapped here, we'll bring on Aaron for a couple-year deal. Plus, Aaron, from all the indications, Aaron wanted to be a Jet and was dumped for the second time. So I think Aaron does not want to end his career like that. And again, I thought in his last 10 games, he had like a 98 passer rating. He was pretty good. So my take is, Aaron, it's not I mean, I had somebody that I really trust tell me this, that Aaron Rodgers is who McVay would go after. I mean, he went after a guy in Baker Mayfield that came with baggage. He went after him in 1 second.
Carson Wentz, they got, they've done a lot of that. He has he's like the young version of Andy Reid. They'll take on problems. The difference, though, is to me, there's a big difference as the player. Aaron Rodgers wants no part of getting hit. He just will not. And that's still a quality that Stafford will sit in there and he will get peppered as he delivers a strike.
Yep.
And that, at the level in which the Rams, I mean, they're the only team that went toe to toe with the Eagles. So it's like they're trying to compete for the Super Bowl. That difference in standing in there throughout the course of a season in the big games, I think there would be a drop off unless Aaron was just willing again to play like he did. And I don't think at 41 years old he would be. I mean, that is one thing. Stafford will sit in there kind of like the old school quarterbacks and still get
Yep.
hit. So I understand maybe his negotiating, like, hey guys, I'm taking a lot of hits here too. Like I need some money for these bruises that I wake up with every Monday morning.